All right, let's talk about debt. It's this thing that can absolutely crush the average person, a total cycle of stress. But what if I told you it's the exact same tool the ultra-wealthy use to get even richer? It's a huge paradox, and today we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how they do it.
I mean, think about it. For most of us, living on loans is supposed to ruin your life, right? That's what we're all taught. Credit card debt, it's a trap. A car loan, just another source of stress. The whole idea of borrowing feels like a one-way ticket to financial trouble. And let's be honest, for a lot of people, that's exactly how it plays out.
But, and this is a huge but, here's where the script gets flipped completely. You look at the wealthiest people in the world, and guess what? They are swimming in debt. They live on borrowed money. For them, debt isn't some scary monster. No way. It's a strategic tool, a lever that makes them richer, more powerful, and get this, even more financially secure. So how is that even possible? How can the exact same thing, borrowing money, be a trap for one person and a tool for another? Well, that's the big question we're going to crack open right now.
Okay, so it really all boils down to this. There are two completely different worlds of debt, and the dividing line between them is what's actually backing the loan. Is it your income or is it your assets?
First, let's talk about the world of debt most of us live in. Consumer debt. You know, your car loan, the credit card balance, all that stuff. Usually, it's for things that lose value over time. But the real kicker, the real trap, it isn't just what you're buying, it's how you have to pay it all back. And here's the absolute killer. You have to pay for that debt with your after-tax income. So, you work hard, you earn a paycheck, the government immediately takes its slice, and only then, with what's left over, do you get to pay the bank. Oh, and you're paying them interest too. It's like this double whammy that makes getting ahead feel almost impossible.
So right from the start, the whole picture is just backwards for most folks. The debt is huge compared to the assets, and your paycheck is the only thing holding it all together. It's like you're walking a financial tightrope. But for the wealthy, it's the complete opposite. Their assets are enormous, and the debt they take on is just a tiny little slice of what they already own.
And this is where you really see how the bank's point of view changes everything. Look, if you're getting a loan based on your income, the bank is basically betting on your job. What happens if you get laid off? The payments stop. That's a big risk for them. So bam, high interest rates and really rigid terms. But when a wealthy person walks in, the bank isn't looking at their paycheck. They're looking at a mountain of stable assets. The risk for the bank is practically zero. So what do they get? Super low interest rates and flexible terms. And this right here is the key insight. It completely reframes the entire problem. The loan itself isn't what makes you risky to a bank. It's not having the assets that does. The bank doesn't see you as a risk because you're borrowing. They see you as a risk because you don't have that solid foundation of assets to back it up. Okay, so now we know why the wealthy get better deals. But how do they actually use this advantage? What's the playbook? Because it's not just about getting a cheaper loan. It's a very specific strategy designed to generate massive amounts of tax-free cash.
Well, the foundation for this whole playbook is built way before they ever walk into a bank. It's all about owning what are called trustworthy assets. So what does that mean? We're talking about things that go up in value, are pretty stable, and are easy to sell if you need to. You know, like a big portfolio of stocks or prime real estate. To a lender, these kinds of assets are way more reliable than somebody's job.
And once they have that pile of trustworthy assets, the playbook itself is surprisingly simple. It's just 3 steps. Step 1, build the assets. We just covered that. Step 2, borrow a small amount against them. This is key. It creates what's called a low loan-to-value ratio. And finally, step 3, structure the loans so it's super flexible, which almost always means making it interest only.
All right, now we get to the part that sounds completely backwards, just insane. With this kind of loan, the goal for the wealthy is often to never pay it back. Seriously, ever.
Let me walk you through a quick example so you can see how this works. Let's say you've got a portfolio of stocks and real estate worth $50 million. You go to the bank and you borrow $10 million against it. That $10 million in cash shows up in your bank account. And here's the kicker, because a loan is an income, it's 100% tax-free.
Now think about it from the bank's perspective. This loan is an absolute slam dunk for them. You're only borrowing 20% of your asset's value. The risk is practically non-existent. So of course, they're going to offer you a rock-bottom interest rate. Let's just call it 3%.
Okay, and here is the real magic trick of the whole structure.
Remember how we said the loan is interest only? That means you don't actually have to pay back any of that original 10 million bucks, the principal. Your only required payment is just covering the interest.
So what does it cost to have access to $10 million in cash year after year? It's just the interest. 3% of $10 million is $300,000 a year. That's the rent you pay on the money. And that cost is easily covered by the investment returns on the other $40 million in assets you still have working for you.
So you might be thinking, okay, but what happens when the loan is due? You don't sell your prized assets to pay it back. No way. You just refinance. You take out a new loan to pay off the old one. And here's the best part. If your assets have grown in value, you can usually borrow even more money tax-free. It's a cycle that can just keep going and going.
And then there's the final, and frankly most brilliant part of this whole strategy. It has to do with what happens at the end of life. There's this little-known tax rule called the stepped-up basis. Basically, when the person passes away, the tax cost of their assets resets to whatever the market value is on that day. So their kids can then sell just enough of those assets to pay off all the loans without having to pay a giant capital gains tax bill. The wealth is preserved.
So, okay, after seeing this entire playbook laid out, what's the big takeaway? If you strip away all the details, what's the one thing that really matters? It really all comes down to one simple, fundamental difference.
What becomes really clear is the debt itself isn't good or bad. It's not the villain here. The thing that changes everything, the real dividing line, is what you have standing behind the debt.
And that is the great divide. For most people, their debt is backed up by their next paycheck. It's backed by their income. But for the wealthy, their debt is backed by a fortress of assets. And that, right there, changes the entire game.
Which really leaves us with one last question to chew on. After seeing all this, is debt really the problem, or is the real problem simply not having the assets in the first place?